All right, welcome back to our QuaranSTREAM, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We're looking forward to answering your many questions from the previous session. Hope you watched it. If you didn't get the chance, we provided a lot of helpful updates, so be sure to check on the page. As always, I'm Abrar Omeish. I'm your member at large on the Fairfax County School Board, and I'm pleased to be with.
Oh, sorry. My name is Kimberly Boateng, and I'm the student rep this year for the FCPS school board.
So we know this has been obviously a stressful time, but we've been pleased to see how the community has come together. So we wanted to just make sure we gave you guys some updates since our last session, which was on Thursday evening. We'll go over a number of things that have additional information that we didn't have at that point. And we'll talk a little bit about the Friday school board meeting, and then we will open it up to questions as always. So getting started here. So firstly, thank you again to all our staff, our custodians, our food services staff, our support teams, our bus drivers, everyone across the county who has been working very hard. Our technology team, the SPEDs, folks who've been delivering thousands of laptops and meals, breakfasts and lunches. So real sincere thank you. In addition, of course, to our leadership team, who's been working tirelessly, and all of their staff and the various departments. So a couple of things. Right now in our county, we are at about 188 positive cases with 2 deaths, those being in either Fairfax County, City of Fairfax, or City of Falls Church. But of course, more importantly, we are working towards a county situation where we are socially distancing, hopefully, and everyone's partaking in that, and we will get through this together. So a couple of county updates. So things to keep in mind outside of FCPS. So folks have come together to have the situation be so that if you're facing anything like eviction or utility suspension, those actually cannot be fulfilled or cut off without a court order. So so that you're aware if that is happening to you, or if you're facing that or know someone who is, be sure to refer them. There's a Virginia Poverty Law Center hotline, which is 1-833-NO-EVICT. That's 1-833-663-8428. So again, if you are facing any kind of eviction or utility suspension, be sure to contact that hotline, because right now, without a court order, that is not allowed. In addition, there will be a small business webinar to help support, to provide, explain what resources are out there for folks. If you have additional questions on that, or if you're interested in that in particular, do reach out. I can send you the link. But of course, many businesses are facing a tough time right now, but there are wonderful resources for folks who need that support. Additionally, there is, for folks, there's something called the Financial Empowerment Center. So if you're in South County, they're helping folks, they're counseling folks through all sorts of situations and financial planning. So in this tough time, so feel free to reach out to them. Again, that's the Financial Empowerment Center. And that link is in the document that is attached to this Facebook Live. Finally, folks are able to, if you have lost your job or been terminated, you have the chance to apply for unemployment benefits. That is on the Virginia Employment Commission's website. So be sure to look out for that and file your paperwork to get that supplementary income if you are in need of it. Okay, so Kimberly, go ahead. We had our school board meeting on Friday. Kimberly will give us a quick update.
So we had a school board meeting on Friday, and there were a lot of information that was spread out during that meeting. There's also many questions that came from that. And also, I just like to take the time to talk on behalf of the school board and the staff that we thank you all for your questions, your emails, all of it, because it's nice that you guys are reaching out and also making sure that your voices are heard and that your concerns are being addressed. So during the school meeting, like I said, there's a lot of information, and in the second half of it, they voted to purchase middle school laptops. So the 1-to-1 will be extended to middle school, and we'll be talking about the key topics today regarding the distance learning plan that was proposed on Friday's meeting.
Thank you, Kimberly. And that was a meeting that I think went from 11 a.m. to, was it 4 p.m. or some crazy hour. It was a long meeting. My colleagues and I asked each of us 10, 20 questions, ran out of time asking questions and continued to ask questions to get information to you guys as quickly as possible from our staff who are working diligently. As Kimberly mentioned, there are a couple things that were presented, and I want to share my screen here for a sec just to show you guys where you can access some of these materials, which we'll be trying to go over the information from today. So give me 1 second here. Okay. So here we have the homepage, of course, of fcps.edu. You're able to access it, where all the updates are. Here we have, the distance learning plan and whatnot. The school board specifically discussed, as Kimberly mentioned, so the 2 topics. If you ever want to, see what the school board is up to, what they are doing, or what's on their agenda, this is kind of not straightforward. So that's why I want to walk everyone through this here. You go to the website, you click on the full menu right here on the left. Then you go down to school board. And as soon as this loads here. Yeah, once you get to our school board website, there's something called board docs, which is where all the materials and agendas for these meetings are housed. So as soon as we get to board docs, here's our special meeting that we had on Friday. And once we get to this meeting, we're able to click on the agenda, and you'll notice right here to the left, these are all the various things that we discussed. So I, encourage you to come on here if you're particularly interested in the distance learning plan or the rationale behind the middle school laptop purchase. And, I want to acknowledge here, we heard from the community in a variety of ways, many different opinions about these things. The key thing to keep in mind here is with the laptops specifically, you'll see that there was a lot of explanation as to why this occurred, and various school board members explained, which I encourage you to see the video, which I'll show you where to find that in just a second. But overall, there are jurisdictions across this country that are purchasing tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of laptops from the same vendors. And there's real concern about the shortage. And the second thing to keep in mind is, in many ways, we wouldn't actually be in the situation we're in right now had we had a technology rollout for everyone already, right? So a lot of this work that's being done right now in this week or two is making sure everyone has the technology access and the materials, everyone gets used to it and is trained in how to use it, and that we have the tech support to explain what folks may be confused by. So that's just something to keep in mind moving forward. We're hoping that this is a responsible and thoughtful decision for the school division moving forward. Okay, so here's where you can find a little bit more about what was presented with the laptops. But specifically what I want to call your attention to is this distance learning plan. So you're able to access here both the extensive plan and the presentation that Dr. Presidio went over. So here's the extensive plan, which I encourage folks to look over. It's dense. We're going to try to cover some of the things that were in highest demand based on your questions from last time and since our last QuaranSTREAM. But to summarize it, which may be easier for folks to follow, is this presentation right here, which Dr. Presidio presented. And him and his team, Dr. Presidio is one of the many leadership team staff members. He's officially the Director of Instructional Services. So they're in charge of the curriculum and implementing the academic pieces of a lot of what we're looking at here. And from there, I want to also show you on YouTube where you can actually find, so if you just Google put Fairfax County Public Schools in the YouTube search bar, you'll find our channel. And right here, you will also see this video, the distance learning plan presentation from the school board meeting. It's about 30 minutes of Dr. Presidio explaining to the school board what the particulars of it are and answering a number of our questions. And here, of course, you will find our nearly 5-hour school board meeting video, which happened over channel 21, and we were all virtually present. Okay, so I hope that that's useful information for all of you guys, so you know where all the materials are. Again, we're going to try to break down some of it so it's just clearer and easier to take in, and answer questions at the end of this. Kimberly will help us with a couple of vocab words that have been coming up here and there, both in these documents, in the presentation, the school board meeting, and throughout our conversation today.
Okay.
So let me stop sharing my screen here real quick. There we go.
So I decided that when we were talking about this whole thing, when we were in this very long school board meeting, there are a couple words that kind of popped out to me that even I had to Google. So I thought all thought it'd be of some use to kind of give like a little summary and kind of glossary before we dive into it. So to begin with, distance learning, it's in the title, and what that means is online learning, because we are not able to be present in our schools, unfortunately. So our distance learning is, since we're all social distancing, which I really do hope we are, we're all going to be tuning into our lessons through virtual. Synchronous, it means learning event in which a group of students are engaged in learning at the same time. So that's basically your teacher taught courses at like where you're all tuned in, is directly taught from your teacher at the same time. Asynchronous is basically when learning is done of the same material, but at different times. So synchronous and asynchronous will likely come up multiple times. We wanted to make sure that we all knew what it meant and that we were on the same page.
Thank you, Kimberly. And we really, part of the intention here, right, is to really break things down in a way that's any person can understand. We don't have to get caught up in these big words and not be sure what's going on. It's certainly a tough time for everyone, and we just want to break it down and make it as easy as possible. So thank you, Kimberly, for that. So moving right ahead to the distance learning plan. We talked a little bit about it last time, and we went over a number of things. As I pointed out to you, I would recommend you watch the presentation for a detailed overview. I wanted to show some of the planned schedules of the day for various grade levels. And Kimberly will walk us through a little bit of an explanation as to what's planned in that regard. And then I will answer a number of the questions that I took notes on from last time. And we will move right ahead with additional questions. So let me go ahead and share my screen again here. Okay, so if you want to follow along, this is, again, the distance learning plan presentation that Dr. Presidio went over. And let me get to the slide real quick. So on the 8th slide, we'll see here an elementary schedule. Kimberly, go ahead.
So for elementary school, it's pretty much the same, like all the way through. And the sample schedule's right there. I'm not going to go all the way through because, it's very kind of detailed here how it's going to work. But for elementary school, they'll have this block schedule, which some will be virtual direct teacher taught instruction, and then there'll be independent study time for all elementary school students. What's going to be happening in the near future is there's going to be packets that are going to be sent out to elementary school age students that will basically make sure they're keeping occupied and learning the material that is required. And ongoing, there'll always be ongoing engagement, which would be considered asynchronous learning on channel 21. So that's basically the overview of elementary school. It's pretty straight to the point. Monday through Thursday will be all the same, and then Friday will be generally just independent study.
Go ahead. Moving right along to middle and high school.
So the middle and high school level is kind of the one that I received a little bit of confusion of in like the past few days. So at first glance, some people thought that it was the block schedule was a mix for middle school and high school, so that we'd have like a bell schedule every day. But no, this is split up. So what you see in the yellow on top is middle school. So middle schoolers will meet with their 4 core classes and their high school credit classes, including world history, for synchronous learning sessions on Wednesday and Friday. On Tuesday and Thursday, there'll be independent study time, which would kind of be like what would happen when we were talking about the elementary school. You take whatever information that you learn and do the work. And you have to make sure that I want to make sure that it's detailed that we have each class once. You can see here your 1st, 3rd, and 5th and 7th will be on one day, and then your 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th will be on the other day. So when you look over at high school, is basically the same thing, but just on different days. It'll be the same thing, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays where we'll have the bell scheduled blocking. And then on the other days, there'll be independent study time. And for both middle school and high school students, it will be independent collaborative work. So the reasoning behind why it's blocked out like this is because in many households in FCPS, there are students there are households that have both middle school and high school students. So they wanted to make sure that the burden on parents was kind of minimized and supervision would be able to be happening so that it's not overwhelming for families. So on Tuesdays, say if a parent just wanted to focus and making sure, like supervising their high school students, they can. On Wednesday, they can do the same with their middle school students, just to make sure that it's not all going on the same days.
Thanks, Kimberly. And actually, I'll also go over a number of things that came up as questions that were mentioned here in the distance learning plan, but to keep a couple things in mind here. So in terms of what the staff roles are going to look like as well, you know, as I mentioned last time, so staff officially start being required to work virtually on March 30th. And they're going to be doing their virtual orientations and making sure everyone's on the same page. The collaborative teams will come together. And as you'll see here, all staff are going to be part of that support team for your child or for you, if you're the student watching. So for example, parent liaisons will be available 24/7 support, connecting folks to resources. Our SBITs, our technology specialists, will be available in making sure that, you know, tech things are figured out and there aren't any issues. Your principal will also be available virtually to be that resource for you. Even though we're not in a physical building, they're going to maintain that role. Counselors as well, and some of our social workers and school psychologists will have office hours and various ways for you to connect with them and seek their advice or help throughout the period. So, and a number of these staff, counselors, parent liaisons in particular, will also be looking after our students and making sure that things are taken care of, that folks have the resources they need. And the particular details of that will be sent out to you as you continue to hear from folks. As I mentioned, last time there was an email that was sent out last Thursday from the superintendent about distance learning broadly. And hopefully within the week, you will be hearing from your teachers, if you're students, but from the particular teachers teaching various subjects to give you further guidance on that. We also received a number of questions, understandably, about grading, okay? So here's where we're at, guys. I know folks are concerned about improving their grade, whether it's third quarter or having the chance to improve their overall grade in fourth quarter. I'm going to go over a couple of things right now to give some clarity on the big picture, and then feel free to ask more particular questions. Okay, big picture. So the most important piece here is that we're erring on the side of the students, and Dr. Presidio mentioned this. You know, when I work with the staff and the leadership team, or when I work with folks in general in FCPS, I want to ask tough questions, and I really want to get to the bottom of it. One of the things that I can assure you is I am confident in Dr. Presidio's leadership, not just because, you know, I'm saying that as a formality, but truly he has been responsive to our questions and our particular needs, especially students. I know you've brought forward to me and to others specific concerns about, for example, student athletes and the grades that they're going to need. A pass-fail for them may be a different kind of grade, right? It may affect them negatively. What about colleges? All sorts of questions. Can we have completion grades? Can it be opt-in grading? All these questions we've heard, and I've seen some of your proposals. I know students at TJ came up with a long, proposal of ideas. Firstly, I commend you for that, and I'm proud of the student effort here, really to kind of take things into your hands and take the lead. And I'm proud to say that we are collaborating with staff right now to see what ways we can bring this about. So, where we are so far. The Virginia Department of Education has provided us with the guidance that we are not supposed to grade anything that was issued during school closure. There are a number of reasons for that. Largely that it's not necessarily fair to do that when not every student would have had that clear instruction or would have had access in the same way. So given that situation, there were, of course, the 16 days or so, right, in the end of third quarter where folks were hoping that they would have that chance to have an assignment or maybe a test was scheduled. It looks like right now, those will not be considered a part of the grade. But what will happen is no student's grade will get worse than the place it was at when schools closed. Okay, so if you were at let's say an A level grade, there's no way that it can go down no matter what test was scheduled, right? So you're not going to get a 0 on a test because it was scheduled during a time when we didn't have school. And if you had late work, if there was an assignment you didn't submit yet, that was assigned before that school closure date, then you can still submit that. It could be like late or makeup work or whatnot. So the grade book isn't closed, but additional assignments, again, from guidance from Virginia Department of Education, are not really possible to include. However, rest assured here, okay, guys? So fourth quarter, as of now, is going to be a pass-fail. So, if you do sufficiently well, you're going to be fine. And teachers will continue to be in touch with families and report back if there are significant barriers or whatnot that may impact that. Again, the school system right now is erring on the side of the students. That means essentially we're a little bit biased in favor of the students because of the difficult circumstances we're in when it comes to grades. So, all right, what about those students who want to improve their grades and who pass-fail isn't good enough for you, right? Here's what so far is the plan. Teachers will continue to watch for improvement and progress, right? What does that mean? I got some questions from you guys about that potentially being subjective, right? Fair question. What that's going to look like is it can only help you. So if you as a student in fourth quarter are really keeping track, are doing your assignments well, or for this period of third quarter that is no longer counted, right? If you're able to show market improvement, or if you're really an attentive student, that becomes an opportunity for you to potentially improve your overall grade. How does that work? Because our grading is actually an average, right? So even for right now, like third quarter grade, fourth quarter grade, it's not actually a grade that colleges see or that is permanent. It just ends up being the average of your first, second, third, and fourth quarter grades. And not even the letter, it's actually the numbers, right? So like you got, I don't know, a 93, an 86, whatever those numbers are, in the end, you end up with that grade. So there may be an opportunity for a bonus or some kind of additional bump of a sort, depending on your improvement. Now that's not concrete right now, but the hope is that students who feel that they've performed at that level can certainly speak up and make their voice heard to their teacher, to also their counselor, principal, and we can go from there. There will be, tweaks and kinks here and there that we're going to have to adjust to, right, and work through. But please ask your questions in the second section of this conversation, so I can further clarify or perhaps bring them to the attention of Dr. Presidio and others to see where we can take it from here. Kimberly, if you actually have questions as well right now that may help students based on what I said, feel free to shoot them at me, and I will try to provide more clarity before I move to the next topic.
I mean, and they can't see me right now, which is fine. So I'm just pretend like they can see me.
No, they can see you. You're just small on the side here.
Really?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I've heard a lot of questions about like subjectivity, and also there's some people who are really concerned about the finals and how mathematically the grades will be kind of put into place. Because I have some friends who are kind of concerned that maybe later on the 3 quarters won't really mean too much if this last quarter is going to be like determinate. It's like, oh yeah, this one's for all the marbles, so they're kind of worried about how they'll be able to keep the integrity of their last 3 quarters while also having the chance to improve their grades.
Yes. Okay. So what do you mean by that more specifically? So those last quarters, when you say the integrity of those quarters, meaning?
Okay. So what I mean by that is
they take them seriously?
Kind of. So in the sense that their last final grade can be determined by the mastery demonstrated in 4th quarter. They fear that in some cases there will be kind of inflation, so to speak. And they're like, how can we keep it so that it's still realistic and that your grade still reflects how you were performing for the entire year?
That's fair. I mean, again, so first and second will certainly be a part of that calculation, right? When the average is calculated, keeping in mind as well that for that last period of third quarter isn't necessarily the same as fourth quarter, right? So it's that no longer assignments will not be issued retroactively. So it's not like, we can't issue like a homework assignment now that would have been counted for that period, but your grade won't go down from the point of closure. In terms of inflation, it is a situation that's obviously unprecedented and unusual. No doubt colleges will be taking that into consideration, right? So when they see that on everyone's transcript, they're going to know why that's there. And they're going to make adjustments and decisions accordingly. But those students who really kind of show that mastery or who are working really hard have the opportunity potentially to improve their grade even more. So there will be still that opportunity for differentiation, but not necessarily in a way that hurts students. And again, a lot of this is based on the confines of the Virginia Department of Education's guidance. I did talk to Dr. Presidio about the possibilities that the room that we may have as a school board to kind of determine, or as a school division with his support and direction here, to try to come up with our own policy or to further nuance it. Luckily, we're in a place where there's maximum flexibility is what they're calling it, right? So there will be room to pause, adjust. The Virginia Department of Education may also adjust their own guidance based on how things are rolling out. So that's the current plan, which I trust at this point is not going to put anyone at a disadvantage. But, we're going to continue moving forward and seeing what's to come. So feel free to ask these additional clarifying questions, y'all, in the chat after this conversation. And I will also, again, try to circle back and get you answers as much as possible. So looking at SOLs, because they were also a question, and seniors and what's going on from last time. I know one of you asked specifically about FCPS requesting a waiver from the Virginia Department of Education. I wanted to clarify that wasn't exactly the case. It's the Virginia Department of Education that's requesting a waiver from the federal government, the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, about the required annual testing. In terms of maximum flexibility and whatnot, seniors, all of you are going to graduate. Don't worry. It is something that, everyone is committed to. So in terms of grading and classes and whatnot, we're working towards making sure that happens for everyone. And then SOLs for everyone else. Right now, we're waiting to see where that waiver ends up taking us. But the Department of Education, again, is allowing for that maximum flexibility and is fully aware of the unreasonable expectations at this point, right, to kind of impose that on anyone. So that's just a little bit of an overview of this distance learning plan, in addition to answering specific questions that came up last time. Doing our best here to listen to you and take note of your concerns. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and we'll get right back into our topics to cover. I know another question that did come up was related to electives. So specifically driver's education. That came, I'm not sure if it was a Twitter message or on the Facebook Live. But to answer your question, yes, driver's ed will continue. Luckily, the Virginia Department of Education and the DMV were able to work things out and come up with an alternative where using what Kimberly mentioned, synchronous learning will be used. So long as there's an instructor live teaching students via video, it will count. And they're also exploring the option for this 90-minute parent-teen requirement that we talked about, that it can be considered to count so long as it has a signature from your instructor and is taught in small groups via Zoom or some other synchronous tool. And I know that we're going to be using Blackboard Collaborate. That's also in the distance learning plan, so you'll see it there. Side note for any parent that's interested in why we're not using Zoom, there are privacy requirements legally for student information. As you can imagine, we want to make sure we protect, everyone's privacy, our student info and the video conversations that are happening with minors. So Zoom just doesn't afford the same contract because they use the cloud, but that's a technical point if that's interesting to you. So yes, in terms of driver's ed, it will be happening. Behind the wheel, obviously, because of social distancing, is just not really going to be feasible right now. But certainly we're going to be making sure that students who needed that kind of program will have the opportunity in the future. So to the question, yes, driver's ed, and yes, parent requirement. Stay tuned for more information from your instructors. Okay, so a couple more questions that came up. Kimberly, you can go ahead and answer some of those learning material questions.
Okay, cool. So there were questions about how parents can opt out of printing packets. So as you know, there are some people who have concerns about how things being mailed into their homes, and that is completely understandable. So info will be sent out soon, and an application will be made and will be finalized. I believe it says here by the end of today, so I'm gonna just stick to that. That might be changed, but there'll be an application for a waiver to opt out of the printing packets if your family so chooses. And how can parents find out what the schedules are? So the specific schools will send out that information, and it will be available early next week. The basic kind of standard baseline will be like what Dr. Presidio presented, but there might be some changes based on where you go to. And if there are any feelings about that your student isn't benefiting from the distant learning plan, parents should reach out to the school, which includes like the principal, the counselor, just to see what can be done so that the student can really take advantage of the rest of the school.
Excellent, thank you. In terms of students with IEPs, special education students, there are some resources that have been posted. The special education PTA has been really helpful in disseminating some of that. I'm going to take about 2 minutes of our call here to show you a video that actually came out of the special education PTA, showing some of the materials that are available, and we will go back to our questions. So give me 1 second here. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Amanda Campbell, and I'm the Communications Chair for Fairfax County SEPTA. I am here because I wanted to give a quick walkthrough on how to get to the Accommodations Toolbox that Dr. Brabrand referenced on his Facebook Live this afternoon. First thing you're going to want to do is open up whatever web browser you use and type in www.fcps.edu/academic/continuity-learning-resources. And then let that page load. It may come up with the COVID alert, so just close that out. But then beneath that, you're gonna see the different school levels, and you have to go into each level to see the accommodations toolbox provided for that grade level. In the elementary set, there are hyperlinks for each grade. It just takes you to the bottom, where there are a number of resources available, including resources for adapted PE, PT, OT, speech, hearing services, vision services. ATS has provided some resources here under communication. There's adapted curriculum and general curriculum and pre-K as well. I'm going to exit back out. Middle school and high school are organized slightly differently. They don't have those hyperlinks under each individual grade, or in this case, each individual subject. You just scroll down to the bottom of the page and you will find the same type of menu with the resources appropriate to that grade level. Again, including hearing services, PT, adapted PE, and all of that. And you will see the same in the high school level as well as just like the middle school, you scroll all the way down to the bottom. And there they are. I hope this is helpful to you to help find the resources while we are all going through this crisis. We will do our best to help communicate as best we can, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully that provided a little more clarity on the special ed resources that are out there. Of course, it is a continued process with the packets being sent out and whatnot. And that specific schedule, by the way, is outlined in the distance learning plan, which I showed you guys earlier, that document alongside that PowerPoint presentation. So again, encourage you to look at it in more depth if you have specific questions. because we really, are mindful of the fact that our special ed kids, I know many of you are hurting and concerned and really worried about what's going to happen with your kids. And I promise you that, we're looking into how we can best support them. And as a school board, we're asking all the questions to staff to make sure that we try to provide those resources. So feel free to continue sending those questions so that we can, hold us accountable. Moving forward, technology. Kimberly, go for it.
So we have many good questions that were asked in terms of technology, and these are some answers that we were able to provide. So the option of requesting multiple devices because of multiple students per household. So this is something that we're still looking into, but we're focusing on getting those devices to secondary students first. And the availability of MiFi and technology devices and their availability. So we are prioritizing internet connectivity for high school students because of basically the requirements of online learning. There's an increased demand for MiFi. So we have enough laptops for students in need, and we are reconfiguring school devices to lend out to students in need, but not everyone in the district.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Kimberly. And our SBITs are working, nonstop every day out there delivering, because reminder, the governor's requirement is that everything has to be distributed one by one. So it's certainly a massive effort, and we're grateful to them for that. A couple of questions that also came up for parents. So folks who are concerned about SAC, which, as a reminder, it's kind of an after-school childcare program, but is run by the county, not by the school system. But to provide you with the information, families who are not receiving those services right now will be refunded, but you also will remain on the list for the following year, so you don't have to worry about the wait list and whatnot, given that you've lost that service right now. And you will be contacted with further details depending on the situation if, we reopen or anything like that, what's going to occur. In terms of childcare and whatnot, so there will certainly be, families, we've heard you, many of you may be working or required to work virtually. At the same time, you're going to have kids at home who may need to, be handheld or pushed to learn. I know it's certainly stressful in my household with a younger sibling and whatnot. But certainly that's going to be something that school counselors and parent liaisons will be stepping into to the role of. So stay tuned, and we're going to try to find ways that staff can connect with kids and make sure that they're following up with what they need. And of course, there are parent liaisons who will be supportive for multilingual needs as well. So we hope that folks will be able to take advantage of that. And this is part of, again, talking about a community of learning, right? I touched on this earlier, and I asked about this in the school board meeting as well, in terms of who's going to really be the custodian of our children during this period, as opposed to just, providing that material online. There are going to be a number of things that are happening for flexibility purposes. I confirmed that classes will be recorded so that there's that flexibility where students can hop in whenever is convenient or whenever makes the most sense for the family. So you can really have the opportunity to review with your child if you're a parent who wants to be more involved. And then in addition to that, all the staff who would normally be in a school community will be overseeing the needs of our student population. So moving away from the centralized, structure that someone asked about last time, as we roll into this with our teachers providing instruction and all the staff surrounding that, surrounding our classrooms normally, like counselors and psychologists and social workers and parent liaisons and administrators and the principal and the assistant principals, who will all be involved in following up with students and making sure that that their needs are met. As for Blackboard account, so many families may not be aware that you can actually have a parent Blackboard account. There was a letter sent out on March 16th to provide you with some information on how to start that up and how to get logged in. And it's also on the website. If you did not, if you didn't see the mail or lost it or anything like that, you can learn more about that. But we highly encourage parents to make their Blackboard account if they're able to follow up with their students' learning. Okay, in terms of our teachers, Kimberly, you want to take that one?
Yeah.
All right.
So our teachers will be returning to work officially on March 30th, which is tomorrow, and tech support will be available to help staff. Synchronous learning could be a challenge for many staff with home needs, because we know that everyone has families and different responsibilities that come with being at home. So this is because it's a challenge, we want to provide maximum flexibility, and more asynchronous learning could be used to better help our teachers and help them kind of make it the best situation possible for them. So what I mean by more asynchronous learning is potentially more independent work time for students, reaching out individually and it's at a different time, say if they can't meet for that specific time block that's allotted. And there's also the FCPS channel content and other at-home resources. So employees that are on maternity leave will continue to be on maternity leave and will be allowed to return to work once they have gone through the entire their entire leave, and will return to the work process. So employees on maternity leave, medical leave using family medical leave, or leave without pay will be allowed to return to work once they are approved by their doctor. And hourly and substitute employees will receive income replacement from March 16th to March 27th. Those who work between February 17th and March 13th will receive pay equivalent to their average earnings per pay period over the past 6 months. Those who worked less than 6 months will be paid based on the overall average biweekly payments. Effective March 30th, long-term substitutes who continue to support instructional activities will be paid for assigned hours, and staff do not need to work over spring break. If you have any questions regarding the information that we just stated, please email hrconnection@fcps.edu. I'll repeat, hrconnection@fcps.edu.
Thank you, Kimberly. And a reminder to folks, as we mentioned last time, that staff pay for temporary workers, which has been issued, as Kimberly mentioned, for the coming 2 weeks, is going to be discussed by the school board after that to determine what's happening in the future. Other than that particular category, everyone else is being paid their entire contracts as was planned for the year. Okay, so just a couple of quick answers to questions that came last time, and then we're going to open it up for live questions. Folks who asked about students who may be in tough situations, who may be in abusive homes, Artemis House is actually still accepting residents. So if you have questions about that, or a student who knows someone who may need it, or you need it yourself, you can call 703-435-4960. So seek out the help you need. And we mentioned, last session, we talked about a number of mental health resources and supports that are out there, not just for people who are in crisis, for them as well, but even in general, for your general well-being. So be sure to look out for our previous video and the information document that was attached for additional information. And then finally, there are so many ways to help in the community. We talked about a couple of them last time, but picking up trash in the neighborhood, making positive and uplifting messages, using chalk on the sidewalks or your driveway throughout this period. There are a number of projects as well, making blankets or whatnot for folks, and helping with different youth activities that are going on virtually. And if you're interested in those, as I mentioned before, the official curator for volunteer activities right now during this period is Volunteer Fairfax. So be sure to reach out to them virtually to find out more. All right, so let's open it up to community questions. We hope some of those updates were useful. And I'll continue taking notes to see how I can provide more detailed information as we move forward. So looking at our stream here. What will happen in fourth quarter? So just touching on that again, so fourth quarter right now is planned to be pass-fail. Given, again, maximum flexibility and erring on the side of the student, making sure that decisions that are made regarding anything, like assessment and whatnot is fair. The final exam question, to my knowledge, is again, it's pass-fail, so that's not necessarily going to be the case when not all students are able to access that. I can ask about that question specifically and see if I have some more guidance here with me. Let's see. So as I said, for seniors, regardless of that situation, all will be passing. Let me just take a look at my notes here real quick. So yeah, I mean, like I said before, if a student is improving, they do have opportunities to potentially improve their grades. As for exams, it doesn't look like those are going to be feasible at this point, but certainly we'll get you clarity on that specific question. I believe the decision is also pending, depending on how things roll out and what the situation is going to look like. But again, it's a pass-fail scenario that's helpful for many students. Okay. Montessori school. So just to clarify for folks, you know, all of the information really that we're providing, other than broad community updates, is specific to the public school system. So I would reach out directly to your school administration to find out what the plans are if it's a private school. Let's see. Okay, so especially for primary and lower elementary, the hands-on, for example, math is not done abstractly. They have concrete materials. Absolutely, it's hard to do online learning, 100%. And one of the realities of this situation that I want to clarify for folks, and of course, Kimberly, feel free to chime in at any point here. You know, we recognize, and even in the Friday school board meeting said that none of these are a perfect replacement for in-person learning. There's no perfect substitute for that period. So it is the reality that we're facing. Given that, we're trying to, you know, minimize gaps as much as possible, but between now and when we can resume in-person instruction. In terms of primary and lower grades, I have specific questions about K through 2. I know that, you know, 2 forward are going to have a curriculum, as Kimberly showed earlier, the day-to-day plan, the planned schedule for elementary school students. In terms of the hands-on piece, you know, we're going to be sending those packets to students, which are going to have the worksheets and whatnot that they may be able to work with. And certainly we encourage the use of virtual resources, which will be linked and which will be provided by teachers as well. But I agree with you. I mean, the hands-on, you know, like counting toys and things like that, we'll see what teachers, you know, as I said before, teachers are currently in the process of engaging with their collaborative teams to adapt the curriculum. So they're going to be trying to think of, as the experts and as the ones who work with the kids the most, right? In addition to our curriculum experts, are going to be working together to see how they can provide that as seamlessly as possible, knowing that it's going to be an imperfect transition. So, you know, I mean, thinking completely off my official pedestal here, but you know, if they're maybe able to use things that are at home, right? A pen or a pencil or an eraser. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do it, but the experts are currently in the process of considering the various ways that they can adapt that curriculum to a virtual environment. So I absolutely duly noted your concern, and I'll take it down to ask a little bit more clarity on K through 2. Okay. Yeah, so what exactly does pass-fail look like in terms of equating our final grade? My understanding about that is that it's not going to factor in necessarily to your average grade. So there's no way that it can bring down your grade. So let's say, you know, you take the average of first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and that turns out to be a grade. It's not like you're going to get like a B for passing fourth quarter and then that's averaged in. It's just kind of a check mark, and the average of your grade is for the rest of it, in addition to having the opportunity for those bonuses that may improve your grade if you show that improvement in the end of third and fourth and for fourth quarter. But I can ask that again specifically. A lot of these grading questions, as I pointed out, and again, Kimberly, feel free to add anything, but are based on what's going to happen as we roll out. So, you know, even the particulars, as I asked Dr. Presidio, we're waiting on some of the guidance from Virginia Department of Education to see what our limits are. And then we're also working with teachers, depending on how things roll out and how they're, you know, how well they're able to work with students and how responsive folks are, and what attendance percentages look like. We'll be able to make more informed decisions. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, yes, Karina, thank you for clarifying that. What is the format for the distance learning plan? Is it Zoom? Okay, so I mentioned, even though we're using Zoom right now to social distance in our Facebook Live, Zoom doesn't maintain the same kind of privacy requirements for students. So it's going to be Blackboard Collaborate. Actually, I would encourage you in the distance learning plan that I showed earlier, that long PDF document, there's a page that's a list of the various tools that are going to be used. Blackboard, obviously, we're going to continue to use, Naviance, which is used for quizzes and whatnot. Students have sometimes used. In addition to Blackboard Collaborate, which will be that virtual video tool that will be for synchronous learning. Again, defining that to mean that, as Kimberly helped clarify for us, that means when the instructor is there with the students at the same time, right? But yes, so Blackboard Collaborate will be the tool, and teachers will be sending more information, or the school system will be sending more information on how to set that up. What will happen with our final grades on our transcripts? So that grade will be the average, again, of your performance throughout the year. And again, don't worry, especially if you're a senior or junior, colleges are well aware of the crazy situation that local counties are in. We're much luckier than so many others, actually, because we're working towards, some effective solutions here. But they're well aware that this is no one was prepared for this, right? No one is really in a situation where kids can be accountable for a fourth quarter, and they're taking that into consideration. Will there be an opportunity at the end of each week for students, families, and staff to provide feedback on how the distance learning plan is working? Yeah, so part of what we're looking forward to is, well, first of all, there will be office hours with counselors and whatnot, right, and teachers, so you can tune in and provide the feedback that way. But as a school system, I'll speak for myself first and foremost, absolutely looking forward to community feedback as to how things are going, because we want to adapt and adjust as the period goes on to make sure that we're providing the most feasible situation that's conducive for student success. So I appreciate that question, and I hope that you'll be one of those students who are actively, or parents who are actively providing that feedback and helping us tweak and adjust things as we go.
Yeah, and considering that this whole Blackboard Collaborate and distance learning is a really new thing for all of us in the entire county, it'd be really beneficial to hear from families and parents how it's kind of working when it's actually rolled out. And with that, we'll be able to better improve it and make it a better experience for everybody.
Exactly right. And we'll try to continue doing these, I mean, as a board member, as Kimberly as a board member, trying to connect with folks and give you guys the opportunity through forums like this to bring forth questions as well that we end up, carrying over to staff and helping guide the plans moving forward based on what we're hearing and seeing. Yes, Joseph, thank you for answering. It's Blackboard Collaborate. All work prior to 313 is accepted until 424. However, the school board message leads me to believe the fourth quarter is mute. The final grade will be based on the third quarter. Yeah, so fourth quarter is, like I said, it's a pass fail. The final grade will not be based on the third quarter. So again, guys, I want to really lower the anxiety on this one. We're rooting for you. This could actually be better for you than the other circumstance, just being real with you here, where you have to do all these assignments to get your grade. Just putting that out there, but parents, don't quote me on that. So just to lower the anxiety here, normally the way that grades are done is it's an average of first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. And when we average those four numbers, they come out to one number, which ends up being your letter grade. Okay. Right now, because fourth quarter is going to be pass fail, there's no way to really include it in that average. So we're taking your best third quarter grade right now, right? Because like I said, nothing in tests or assignments or whatever at this point can lower your grade. So the best grade you could have gotten in third quarter, averaging that with second quarter and first quarter to produce your grade. In addition to potential adjustments, if you're showing, a mastery of the topic, if you're, performing really well, opportunities potentially to improve that as well. So just keep that in mind. And that particular structure has not been determined. It's going to be a matter of what we see moving ahead and how the Virginia Department of Education counsels us as well. So a student failing a math course with a rolling grade only has 24 days in April to attempt to pass for the year. So the grade book for third quarter is not closed right now. So right now, students, if you have assignments that you didn't submit, or if you have, makeup work that you need to do, you are able to submit it right now. Okay, so to your teachers or whatnot for the work that was assigned before the closure. So I just want to be very clear about that you still can submit your makeup work and late work and whatnot to be graded for third quarter right now. Okay. Son's math teachers refuse to accept late work and other teachers have only given 50%. So long as it's a consistent policy, I want to make sure that's also clear. So if that late work, was due during the time when school was open, and that was the consistent policy of the teacher to not accept or to give late credit, or sorry, half credit, that, would have been the case whether we closed or not, right? So that's a tougher situation. I would, if you want to ask, maybe you can ask your child's counselor or whatnot. But if it's consistent with pre-closure, procedure, I would expect it to probably be the same. A lot of what we're talking about is obviously the result of the closure. Kimberly, you have any thoughts? We good so far?
I mean, for that one, I'm not sure. Whatever you said, like just now, that 100%. But if it happens to be that the teacher is refusing to accept late work, that was that the deadline was during the closure, I think that's something that could be looked into, because during the closure,
Absolutely.
that's pretty iffy. But if the deadline was prior to the school closure, then unfortunately that's just how it's going to be, if that was a preconceived in the syllabus or whatever. But if the deadline was within the closure and it's the student is still being penalized, then that is an issue because of the fact that the school was closed.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. So if this concern from the parent is an assignment that was due during the closure, do reach out, please. And if you're not able to resolve it with your school principal, you're welcome to contact us directly and we can try to figure it out for you. Yes, Joseph, perfect. Yes, so the fourth quarter offers opportunities to demonstrate a mastery of learning, right? Which improves that final grade. So like I said, as we move forward, there will be opportunities to tweak if you perform well in that fourth quarter. So it's not just enough to pass. And I know some of you are looking to do more than just that. Will the grade level packets for pre-K through 8th grades be mailed to teachers of those levels as well? So teachers will have access. In terms of mail, that's a good question. I can ask about that. Packets being mailed to teachers. I know they'll be available virtually, and that's included in the online plan. Actually, they're on the website, I believe. There's a rollout schedule, and they'll be linking to them. So they will be available virtually. As for in person, I will ask that question for you. Are we going to receive the packets on the week of March 30th? So the exact calendar for the packet schedule is online. Let me see here. Okay, so I'm gonna screen share this real quick to show folks what that's gonna look like. So remember, guys, I mentioned, in the school board meeting, we discussed two primary topics, the laptops and then the distance learning. And the distance learning has a presentation, which has, here, I'll show you guys again right now. So in the meeting, we have the presentation right here, and we have the PDF, which is the detailed plan. The plan is, the presentation, the PowerPoint on FCPS's YouTube, you're able to find it right here. A 30-minute kind of overview of the presentation. And then the plan itself is available as an attachment. This is the particular page that I want us to look at here, where we, just mention exactly when packets are going to be expected, collected. Spring break, you won't have a packet, and you can read a little bit more there. For the teacher, certainly I will be looking at whether those are going to be mailed to you, though. So it looks like, to your question about the 30th, that doesn't look like there will be a packet for that specific week. I don't want to be, 100% here. Let's see. So, okay, yes. So printed packets will be delivered to students' homes, beginning with a collection of review materials the week of March 30th. So it will be review materials that you'll receive the March 30th week. And you can, again, read more specifically about it here. So I will stop sharing now. Okay. Let's see, questions. In addition, any assignments that demonstrate, okay. You mentioned before that students have an advantage right now with grades. I'm wondering how a class with a rolling grade will have an advantage. So again, to be clear, it's not really a rolling grade. So third quarter, the grade book is open. So that means late work and makeup work can be submitted. Additional assignments, because of the Virginia Department of Education's guidance, are considered, unfair, inappropriate, or whatnot. So there won't be additional assignments since the closure. But because of the pass-fail situation with fourth quarter and the opportunity to improve your grade depending on your mastery, that will be a chance for you to kind of improve that overall average of your quarters, of first quarter, second quarter, third quarter grades. I hope that clarifies that.
Abrar, I think she might have been talking about some courses, like in particular, there's some high school courses that instead of having the quarter sectioning, they have a cumulative. Is that that's what you just answered?
Yeah, I think it was that last question. I wasn't sure.
Because last year I had a math class that instead of having the all four quarters being averaged out, it was just all the four quarters were just cumulative all the way through.
I can ask about that specifically, you guys, for cumulative courses. Yeah, because I mean, obviously there are some that are like that, driver's ed is also like a pass fail or whatnot, or health class. So I can ask about that specifically and see if I can get some more information. I do imagine that it'll depend on, how teachers end up, like we said, rolling things out and seeing how things go. Will teachers be made aware of the bonuses to improve our final grade? Absolutely. Teachers are currently working in collaborative teams. They're working really hard, and a lot of them really miss you guys and are excited to reconnect with you. So they are being equipped with that information to make sure that they can provide that help and benefit to you. Will retake policies for third quarter grades depend on specific teachers' schools, or is there a universal policy for the county? So right now there is I guess, universal policy for the county that any work that was not completed by the time the closure happened, so long as it's consistent with the regular policy that's been happening, it should be treated as a normal work assignment, right? So normally, if you submit late work, every teacher kind of has their own policy about that. Some don't accept it. Some will accept it for 50% if it was due before. But if it was due after or whatnot, then additional assignments could not have been issued. If you have a specific question or you feel like there's something that's a little bit unfair, I would certainly, email your teacher, have a conversation, and perhaps, if you're not satisfied, loop in your counselor or principal to try to look into it. But so far right now, it is the case for everyone. Again, actually the whole state, the Virginia Department of Education is providing that guidance that in a closure, assignments cannot be expected to be completed. Let's see. For high school, the school day will be 9:15 to 2:15. Wednesday and Friday are independent learning. Will there be materials provided for those days? Absolutely. So materials will be provided for all learning. Stay tuned again on Blackboard. You should be hearing from teachers very soon about how they're going to, what expectations they're going to have for their specific courses, which include electives, as we've gone over. So just make sure that you're checking, and those materials will be uploaded on Blackboard and whatnot in a similar way, especially the virtual piece. A lot of it, students, will happen in the way that you've been having throughout the year. It's just the instruction piece, the go into class piece that's going to be converted into a Blackboard Collaborate session. Yes, thank you, Joseph. Precisely. Where do the teacher check-ins happen? On Blackboard? Yeah, so I think you're referring perhaps to office hours. So depending on the teacher and their availability and whatnot, they'll be posting office hours that they're available for. They may choose to do those over Blackboard Collaborate or over the phone. But the synchronous learning, which as we said means instruction at the same time between teacher and students, will be happening on Blackboard Collaborate. And I'll share this actually one more time to make sure that folks are aware of where to find it. Give me 1 second here. So in the same packet that I was referring to earlier, the distance learning plan, there is a page. Let me find it real quick. That includes all the learning materials. Here we are. So page 8 of the distance learning plan refers to all the various tools and how they're going to be used. So I highly encourage you to look at this page right here. You know, obviously email, whatnot. Blackboard will be used just as it is right now to upload assignments. Blackboard Collaborate is going to be what's used for the videos, your synchronous learning, the class session. And then, you know, there's eCart for testing and whatnot, or quizzes, so that teachers, you know, while grades are going to look different, teachers will continue to kind of give you guys small assessments here and there to assess where you're going, and make sure that folks are on track and progressing with learning. So that I think will hopefully answer some of those questions. I'm assuming resources like Blackboard and Google Classroom will be used. Yes, absolutely. So like we see here, you know, the Google G Suite will continue to be used. And you guys have a bunch of tools, Drive and whatnot there, and then the Google Classroom as well. And even librarians actually will be providing support for various technology tools and whatnot. So they'll be a resource to you guys. Cool. I think that's our last question. If anyone else has any other thoughts or wants to ask anything else, please do so now. Otherwise, you guys know how to find us. You know, we'll be continuing to do these sessions to try to update you with useful information. If you know anyone who has a language barrier or whatnot, please do remind them that there are various phone lines in 8 different languages that FCPS is providing for parent resources. And we do these live sessions and have luckily about 5 languages that are available as well. So, you know, you're welcome to refer anyone who has any language barrier or need that we're going to try our best to provide that. I see another question actually. So before we close here, with Blackboard Collaborate, will the teacher be the only one on video, or will the entire class be able to be seen like a group chat? Yeah, so what's really nice about that tool is it will be like a classroom. So in the same way you see that, you know, there's me and Kimberly here, you know, you could add more people. This is a different tool, but it's a similar one. Actually, the closest analog to this, perhaps I can show you if it's helpful to you guys. Let's see here. So I want to show you what the school board meeting looked like, and we used Blackboard Collaborate. So that will be an example for you. So if we see here, this was our school board meeting. And you'll notice, let's go to a part where we were talking. Yeah, so hold on 1 second. So you'll notice how my colleagues and I here we all have a little video there that's showing, and there will be different options as to how you can view your screen. So the teacher is able to see multiple students at the same time. And depending on who's talking, they appear, as you can see here. So, and you know, the teachers obviously will be asking students to engage and whatnot through this format. So I hope that helps clarify your question. Okay. So with that, I think, Kimberly, is that everything? Did we cover everything? I think,
I mean,
you know,
for the most part,
what?
I think for the most part, I just want to take this opportunity to make sure that everyone knows, like as always, that they can reach out to both of us and the entire school board for any questions, concerns. For me, you can just hit me up if you want to talk. I'm lucky enough to not be swamped as much with as much emails as the rest of the school board, because they get thousands. So feel free to reach out to me and like the rest of us, and to know that this will all pass, and soon enough, we won't need to have this live stream because we'll be able to go back to normal. And I just want to thank everyone for continuing to hold through. And it's going to be a time that it's going to be a tough time for us, but we're all going to, if there's anybody that can do it, it's Fairfax County, and we're all going to pass through this, and it's going to be really good afterwards.
That's
So,
exactly right.
yeah, just saying thank you again.
Seniors, you're all going to graduate. We're trying to find the best ways to make it really fun and cool to interact virtually in an unprecedented time. Think of it this way, guys. All of you, we're making history together. I know this is crazy. Folks, might be having to go to the hospital and take care of their health, and that's serious. And we want to be there for each other and make sure we access those mental health resources that are online and available and reach out to the people who are there to support you through this tough time. And remember that, my goodness, this is one for the history books, and we're in this together. And day by day, we're going to be collecting that information and providing it to you as much as we can. And this is a crazy situation. If you're feeling stressed or whatnot, there's a lot of information out there about the fact that, mental health wise, it is a crazy time for all of us. We may be experiencing things like grief at the fact that there's a loss of routine. These are all the fact that we feel stressed or maybe on edge, or things are just, we don't know what's going on and we want answers. Absolutely normal. It's only human of us. And it's just really recognizing that reality and saying it's okay that we don't have all the answers right now. We are working very diligently and responsibly towards those answers. And there are people out here to support you and help each other out to get there. So like Kimberly said, be in touch. We will tune back in on Thursday, hopefully with more updates and information. Send your questions in the meantime, and we'll do our best to answer them. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of QuaranSTREAMs. We'll see you next week. All right. Bye, everybody.